Hello, everybody. I see some friendly faces coming online. Yay. Hello in my chat. Who's got my word? There it is. Linda has my word. Yay. Kindness. We all know kindness is the thing at Fictionary above all else. Then we can get to writing and editing our novels and focus on story structure, but only if we're kind. And that's my philosophy because I truly believe when people treat you kindly, you can be more creative and it's more fun.
Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about kickstarting your fantasy novel, and we're going to cover the 5 story arc scenes in a fantasy novel. And I just want to start out with talking about how excited I am to be here. That's if I get very excited when I talk about story structure. I love fantasy. So those two combinations will make me talk a little fast. So if I'm going too fast, just put it in the chat or feel free to come off mute and tell me to slow down because this is really my jam and I love doing this. Christina mentioned kindness. So that is the foundation of Fictionary, and I'm so glad that it is because this is the only place I've ever felt free to and comfortable to share my work. We're going to talk about the 5 story arc scenes in Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. If you guys have read that, I just want to warn you that I'm probably going, and if you haven't read that, I'm going to be giving away some spoilers in this presentation. I'm going to talk about the climax, what happens in it. So if you want to put me on mute when I get to those points, feel free. If you want to read the book and don't want to hear the spoilers. This book is big. It's fascinating. There's so much to it that I can't cover. So even if you hear what I have to say, it's still a great book to read and you haven't read it. So let's start out with typing yes in the chat if you guys are writing a fantasy. Is anybody here writing a fantasy? Oh my gosh, yes, a lot of fantasy writers. Look at that. That's pretty cool. So who am I? Who's your teacher today? I'm Alexandria Yount. I'm a Fictionary certified story coach editor. And I love writing. I love story structure. I write science fiction, fantasy, speculative fiction, a little historical, but I tend to stay in fantasy and sci-fi. So that's kind of my genre. And of course, I'm a lover of story structure, which makes me talk fast. So let's move on. If you guys love what we dive into today and you want more, this was a great 6-week dive into fantasy story structure. It's taught by Adriana Deeb. It's Fictionary Live. You get this for free with your premium subscription, and you will be talking and discussing how to construct a skeleton blurb to crystallize your story's core, chart your protagonist adventure with the external story arc, and fuse your world with magic using the supernatural story arc. After all, magic, mythical creatures is what makes a fantasy. Then you're going to weave these scenes together. So we're going to go over that today, but if you love it and you want more, this is your class, you guys. Starts Monday, September 15th at 7 p.m. And again, Adriana Deeb is an amazing instructor. I've been to her class, this exact class, multiple times. I'm currently writing a fantasy book, a romantasy, because I love romance, with the structure that she teaches in this class. You guys, it's valuable. It's everything you want if you want to write a fantasy. So this is our book. This is the book that I have it. I was an ARC reader for it. It's Secrets to Writing a Fantasy by Christina Stanley and Lucy Cook. You guys, I'm going to try to put the link. Let's see if I can do this in the chat so that you can click on this. Let's see if it works. Let me know if this works. If not, I know the amazing Linda knows how to make this work. So if I don't know if it worked or not, but
It
Linda
worked. Yay. Well done.
Yay, perfect.
Congratulations. There's a little star
Look
for
at me
today. Oh, you got
working the
look at a little one to
chat.
give you a happy thing.
So anyway, go check this book out. This is it. We're going to weave our story arcs. This book is going to teach you how to do it to the minute detail. If you've read it, we'd love it if you left a review because that helps the book raise up to the top at Amazon, reach other readers or writers that are searching for answers on how to forge their books, how to make their fantasies bestsellers. Okay. So, Okay, we got another chat thing, you guys. Put a yes in the chat if you've read Fourth Wing. Great book, super awesome fantasy. Again, I'm going to be revealing a lot of spoilers, so I just want to let you know that again. So here at Fictionary, this is good. I'm going to show you how we define a fantasy, and we're going to talk about some high level genre guidelines, how what readers expect from a best selling fantasy. So Lucy and Christina, our wonderful CEO, they read a ton of fantasy novels that were bestsellers, and they discovered what readers expect, and they've put it in that book. And so that's what we're going to cover today. It might not be everyone's definition of a fantasy, but this is what we've learned and what we teach here at Fictionary. So we're going to show you how skeleton blurbs, that's our thing here at Fictionary, skeleton blurbs. It's the backbone of your book. And we're going to show you how your skeleton blurb will tell you if you're writing a fantasy. So here's some things that a fantasy must do. A fantasy must be an adventure. That's the external plot. And it must be an adventure, and it must also contain the supernatural. It needs to have the 5 story arcs, for 5 story arc, external story arc requirements, and then it also must have supernatural story arc requirements. If this sounds huge and confusing, it's all right, you guys. We're going to break it down. And it's going to be fun. I really enjoy this. So, and then a fantasy must contain the universal scenes for each plot line. So those are your 5 story arcs for each of them. So let's talk about the external versus the supernatural plot. Supernatural is magic. We use the word supernatural, but your magic, your mythical creatures, what makes your story fantasy. So every story must have a supernatural or it must have an external plot. The reader must understand that the protagonist is striving for something external and the reader must learn if the protagonist is successful or not at the end of a story. So create a strong external story goal. The reader will love that, and they'll think, oh yeah, I totally want to find out if the protagonist is successful or not. So that's your external. It shows if the protagonist movement, it shows the protagonist movement through the story. The stakes, so this is important. This is going to be in your blurb, which we're going to talk about next, but the stakes are the reason that protagonist puts themselves in a tension-filled situation and why they risk everything to achieve their story goal. It's not enough to hook a reader. Just a goal is not enough to hook a reader. If the protagonist fails to achieve the external goal, there must be consequences. So there's got to be stakes. That's your hook, you guys, your stakes. So in Fourth Wing, the stakes are super clear. Violet will die if she doesn't achieve the external story goal. Those of you that have read Fourth Wing realize that the stakes are pretty much every scene. If she doesn't accomplish this goal, she's going to die. She's going to die. It's very high stakes. So then let's look at the supernatural. So for a fantasy novel, one of the skeleton blurbs, we're going to have 2, you guys, that we're going to talk today, 2 skeleton blurbs, must include the supernatural. This means this is a magic or mythical world. So the supernatural is magic and mythical. So a supernatural system refers to fantasy worlds where the magic itself is a system of rules and powers, often existing alongside mythical creatures like dragons, vampires, elves, dwarves, whatever you guys come up with. That's your mythical creatures and what makes your story pop. It's your magic. So we're going to cover that today as well. So here's something to look at in your story, in your personal story that you're writing right now. If you find it impossible to write a skeleton blurb that includes magic or mythical world, so if you can't include your magic in your skeleton blurb, you might not be writing a fantasy. So that's something to think about, because the fantasy must be in that story too. The supernatural, the magical part must be in there to make it a fantasy. All right, so another thing to talk about, another thing that we're going to go over is the supernatural skeleton blurb plot must be related to the protagonist because the supernatural is only interesting. It's only interesting when it impacts the characters. So it's got to be related to your main characters, you guys. Let's look at this. So here is the external and supernatural story arcs. This is a graph. This is something we have in the app, and it tracks your pacing. So we've got two. It's not just one. We've got two going today because it's a fantasy. Here's your supernatural on the bottom, and on the top, this is your external. So this is what the end goal is going to look like. This is going to track your pacing, super helpful visual in the app, the Fictionary app. So the reader must understand that the protagonist is after something external and see if the protagonist is successful or not at the end of the story. So that would be your top, the challenge, the adventure accepted, false victory or defeat, your dark forces come in, and your climax, goal achieved or not. So then the supernatural arc on the bottom, these are your plot points, guys. See here, we have inciting incident, plot point 1, middle, plot point 2, and climax. And these are the arc scenes for both these story arcs, and we're going to weave them. We're going to see how Rebecca Yarros did that in Fourth Wing. So the supernatural story arc gives you the structure to control where and when you show the supernatural and how the supernatural helps or hinders. I like that. Helps or hinders, that give and pull, that tension, that conflict, helps or hinders the protagonist. All right, so moving on. I mean, you can see here, we're going to cover this in another slide, but the inkling the supernatural exists. That's your inciting incident. The protagonist believes or uses the supernatural, and then in the middle, proactively uses the supernatural, the magic. And then plot point 2, when it's all the dark, and when it's dark, your lowest point, they're going to see the limitation to that supernatural, but they're going to overcome, because that's what readers love to see. They love to see their protagonist overcome odds. And then in the climax, they're going to use the supernatural to achieve the goal. All right, let's move on to Fourth Wing, you guys. We're going to talk about the external plot, the supernatural plot, but for us romance lovers, that's me, there's a huge romance subplot in this book. If you guys have read it, Xaden is the love interest. Violet is our protagonist. Xaden's the love interest. He is super cool. I love the romance subplot, but this is a story about her surviving as a cadet, about her learning to use her signet, the magic in the story. You can actually take the romance subplot out and the story still is strong. She still has to overcome. She still has to use the magic. I would not read the book probably without the romance subplot because I'm a huge romance. That's what I'm here for. I love romance. So we're not going to cover it. The romance subplot does have 5 external story arcs. I'll try and keep quiet about that, but I love romance. So I'll try and not talk about it. We're only going to talk about external, supernatural, magic, but we can take this romance out. Story's still strong. So I just wanted to mention that because those of you that have read it, you're going to be like, where's Xaden in all of this? Well, we're not going to talk about him, even though he's important.
Alexandra,
Okay.
I'm just going to stop you for a second. I'm going to answer a
Okay.
quick question before you go forward.
Sure.
Lauren had a great question in case everybody didn't see it. What about stories in which the protagonist doesn't have magic and isn't learning how to use it? That's a really great question. And she mentioned Hunger Games, Twilight, I don't know Caravel, and Wizard of Oz. So in Hunger Games, it's a sci-fi dystopian world. There is no magic, so it's sci-fi. It doesn't fall under fantasy category. In Twilight, it's a fantasy because there are vampires in the book, and the story is about Bella, who is trying to learn to live with vampires. If she doesn't, she's dead. So hers is interaction with mythical creatures, but it's not her being a mythical creature. So it still counts as fantasy. Wizard of Oz, there's definitely fantasy in there. And we talk about the ruby shoes. She needs those ruby shoes to get home. So it's there as fantasy. Okay, back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Christina, for covering that. I love science fiction. Don't get me started on that, you guys. I did a class last week, enjoyed every second of it. But we're talking about fantasy today. So type yes in the chat if you have a skeleton blurb for both the external and supernatural blurbs. I'm writing a fantasy romantasy, so I had to write 3. So if you guys have a blurb for each one, type yes. Now you might not know what those are. So let's look at Fourth Wings blurbs. Here's the external. This is a blurb. This is the backbone of the book, you guys. This is what we don't know how Rebecca Yarros wrote the book, but if we were to write a book like this is what each scene must either pull the protagonist closer to or further away from. So Violet, in her external blurb, must use her intelligence to fight other students in the writer's quadrant. Otherwise, she won't survive her first year as a cadet. High stakes. She's going to die if she doesn't learn how to use her intelligence. Okay, then we're going to look at the supernatural. That's our magic. Violet must learn to control her signet. That's her power. That the dragons actually give her the power, but that's her ability, her signet. That's what she can do. Otherwise, she can't protect Navare's borders from evil mythical creatures, and all inside the borders will die. I just want to make a quick note, and I'm trying to stay on time. We're 17 minutes in, but Violet doesn't know. This is a spoiler, you guys. Violet doesn't know that she needs to save the people of Navarre in the beginning of the book. She thinks she's just going to school to learn how to be a writer. The author knows. Okay, you guys know you're in control of your story. Violet doesn't know at the beginning. It's hinted at throughout the story, obviously, and the reader doesn't know. When I was reading the book, I didn't know this was going to happen. She, at the end of the book, literally uses her signet and saves the people. It's not expected. It's expected to just have her graduate from the college. So as the author, you're in control of your story. You know more than the protagonist. In this sense, that's what Rebecca Yarros, she knew what was going to happen, even though the protagonist didn't. So you're the god of your story. Something I learned from another um, story coach editor in Fictionary. Okay, moving on. So the inciting incident is the challenge. It's the main event your protagonist will be presented with. It's a problem. It's an adventure to undertake. It's when, for instance, when Frodo realizes, when the ring is given to Frodo, that's when he realizes, that's the inciting incident of that story. So it's undertaking a challenge. The protagonist will leave the ordinary world. Depart from the ordinary world can happen, and departing from the ordinary world can happen from anywhere up to plot point 1. All right, plot point 1, adventure accepted. Whoops. This main event in this scene where the adventure is accepted, the main shows the protagonist accepting the adventure and why they can't change the decision. If they can change the decision, the story is not moving forward. So it's like a point of no return. They can't go back. They have to accept this adventure, or that they have to accept what the challenge. They have to accept the adventure. So then we move on to the middle plot point. This is often a false victory or defeat in a fantasy. This scene, the protagonist will gain new information that pushes them in a new direction. So they will face a hard moment. Their life may be at stake. This one was really interesting. The story goal can be in jeopardy at this point in the story. So a lot to think about in your middle plot point. That moves us to the plot point 2. So dark forces, they face dark forces. This is the lowest point of your story where it looks like they can't achieve the climax. They can't achieve their story goal. The climax is in jeopardy, right? So they will face the dark forces of your fantasy world. The dark forces may or may not be related to the supernatural elements in the story. It might just be related to the external story. So they will get, as they're facing the dark forces in one part of this scene, or maybe another scene like the next scene, they're going to get the final piece of information they need to address the story goal in the climax scene. So it's dark, it's hard for them, they're at their lowest point, but they're also going to get that last little piece of information that keeps the reader reading. That's that hook. They will be, again, they're going to be at their lowest moment in the story. This can be physical and it can be emotional. It can be both. I mean, you let your imagination soar. It can be, you can create it to whatever you want it to be. All right, so then we move to the climax, the goal achieved or not. So in a climax scene, the goal must be addressed. It doesn't necessarily have to be achieved. There's lots of tragedies out there where they don't achieve their goal, especially in series. They might not achieve their goal, but it has to be addressed. So this scene shows them achieving the goal that's in the skeleton blurb. Well, I'm going to bring the skeleton blurbs back up as we weave the scenes, but the skeleton blurb is the backbone. It shows what your protagonist is going after. So this scene must show clearly to the reader so they have leave the story satisfied. It needs to be clear that the goal is addressed. All right, take a little break here. Does anybody have questions? I'm looking at the chat here. The question that Christina answered was a great question. So if anybody,
So Wanda has a question. Was the false victory in Fourth Wing the defense of Resin?
I don't Resin. I don't know the defense of it's the defense of Navarre. So if you read the book, the Venom are the big bad guys. They use dark magic and the dragon power. I believe if I'm understanding the story correctly, you guys, it's a deep story. It's a saga. It's big. The dragon power keeps the Venom out, and it's a war games. They believe the group believes they're sent in a war games situation, and they're betrayed by kind of like a government situation, and so they have to defend this small little town from the Venom, and it's supposed to be a war games, but it's an actual war. And so she's defending, and she uses her signet to defend these people, these children, these moms, these dads. It's really well done, you guys. The climax scene in Fourth Wing was all that. It was everything I wanted as a reader. It's super good. So you should read it and see what she's defending. It's really good.
Okay, I'm
So
going to
all
give you
right.
one more question before we
Okay.
move forward, just because we're short on time. Brooke asked earlier, what about magical realism, where there's magic, but it's in a contemporary setting? And so this was in the context of describing the story arc scene. So I'll just give a very quick answer. Yes, it's got magic in it. The same, everything applies. It doesn't matter that it's contemporary or not contemporary. It's the concept of the protagonist interacting with the magic. Okay, go forward.
All right. I'm going to speed you guys. So we're looking at supernatural story arc. So the inkling that the supernatural exists. You guys, this happens off page. Both, I think, supernatural or the external happens off page for Violet, but the supernatural, well, we'll get to that. The supernatural is an inkling, the supernatural inciting incident is an inkling that the magic exists. So this lets the reader know they're reading a fantasy. This happens at the beginning of the book, first 15%. And it's usually magic, mythical creatures, powerful rings, whatever you want to come up with. All right, plot point 1 believes in or uses the supernatural. This is where the protagonist accepts the goal in the supernatural blurb. This means for the first time, they fully believe in or use the supernatural, and it is part of their life and the journey they are on. So that's what happens usually in your plot point 1. Middle plot point. Again, turning point. They proactively are using the supernatural. So they're going after that goal. They're not, haphazardly accepting it. They're after it. They're using it. So an interesting point is it's only sometimes needed, the supernatural plot point middle. It says it depends on your external plot. So your protagonist might be already using it. It just depends on what you're writing. And then plot point 2 is the supernatural limitation. Again, low point facing the dark forces. They find that limitation, looks like they can't achieve the goal. Everything's dark, but again, they get that inkling. This often happens in the same scene. We're going to see that in Fourth Wing. The plot point 2 often happens in the same scenes, external and supernatural. All right, so then we're going to go to the climax. So that is where the goal is achieved using that supernatural. We're writing fantasy, so we need to have them use that magic, use the mythical creatures, whatever. The dragon, I mean, she can't achieve the goal without her dragon. She can't save the people in Navarre without her dragon. So that's using both the magic and the mythical creatures. Very well done. So again, questions. If anybody has questions before I move on, we've got only 5 minutes. We're covering a lot here today.
Yep, let me stop you there. So,
Okay.
great question from Maxwell. Curious, does this still work for an epic like Way of Kings or Wheel of Time, etc.? So, yes, it does. Absolutely. And what you're looking at here is a series. And so you're going to have a story arc for book 1, for book 2, for book 3, and for the whole series. And Maxwell, I'm pretty sure because you're taking certification that you're in Fictionary Live, and we've got a series course there that might just be awesome for you if you're interested in that. Okay, back to you, Alexandria.
Yes. Write your series with magic, you guys. So much fun. I'm doing it. I can't. It's and take Lisa's class on series. Brandy might be teaching it coming up. Really fun to learn that, you guys. Okay, so let's look at the blurb again. I felt like we needed to recap. Violet, this is the external goal blurb. Violet must use her intelligence to fight other students. Really violent school, you guys. They kill each other. Just saying, probably wouldn't be accepted on Earth, but fantasy. So she's got to use her intelligence to fight students in the Widers quadrant. Otherwise, she won't survive her first year as a cadet. She's like the least likely dragon rider ever. She's tiny. She has like these physical limitations. Her joints overextend. She's the least likely, but that's what readers love. They love to see the irony, the least likely person succeed and overcome. All really good to make a bestseller. So, supernatural blurb before I get carried away with how wonderful this book is. Violet must learn to control her signet, which is lightning. I hope I didn't just destroy the book for you guys that haven't read it. So she's got to learn how to control that. Otherwise, she can't protect Navare's border from evil mythical creatures, and all inside the borders will die. Okay, so let's weave these story arcs. The first, and we're going to start with the external story arc. It happens off page, you guys. That's when her mom says, "Hey, you're not going to be a scribe." She trained her whole life to be a librarian in a fancy library, but boring, although I think it's cool. But that's what she trained her whole life to do. Her mom says, "No, you're not. You're going to be a dragon rider." Yeah. Anyway, you'll have to read the book. I don't want to spoil everything. So she has to become a dragon rider. That happens off page before the book starts. Inciting incident is the supernatural inciting incident happens at 10% of the book, and this is where Zayden, This is where Zayden, he's the love interest in the book. His dragon, his name's Sagal, and she breathes fire on all the cadets. And not all of them, but several of them. This is how their way of finding out who is not a coward. And Violet learns that she can where am I? Supernatural. That she can, if she stays still, the dragons will let her live. So she learns in this scene that she can influence the dragon's behavior. So she's taking the magic and she's learning how to kind of control it. She's learning about how to use it in this plot point 1. All right, supernatural middle plot point comes next. Violet stops time, and this happens at 44%. Oh wait, nope, I skipped, you guys. Violet beats an opponent in the external story arc. She beats an opponent with poison. So this is where she uses her intelligence. And you have to have this scene before the plot point 1 because she's smart. And Taryn is the dragon that she ends up with. And he sees how smart she is. And that's part of the reason why he accepts her to be his rider. So she beats all of her opponents with poison, because she's small. She's not a fighter. She's not a warrior at this point. Taryn sees that, and you have to have that happen first before he chooses her. And that's what happens in the plot point 1. She says the name of Taryn and Andarna at the threshing ceremony. This means she's bonded with 2 dragons, and she can't reverse this decision. Once it happens, it's over. Because if a rider leaves their dragon, they will die. She must bond with a dragon first to get her signet, and then to control the signet. Okay, we gotta hurry, guys. I'm slow. Middle plot point. Violet stops time at 44% through her dragon. So Andarna, it's a false victory because Andarna channels her power through Violet. Violet doesn't know what's really happening in the scene. She stops time. People are trying to kill her, and she realizes that it's no longer an abstract concept that people want to kill her. They actually want to bond with Taryn, the other cadets. Violet has bonded with him. The other cadets think Violet is weak. They want to bond, so they're trying to kill her. She realizes this, and she has to have this happen before she actually poisons Jack. So she uses oranges, and that happens in the external. She poisons Jack with oranges. She beats him in the little combat they have on the mats where the young adults all fight each other. So she beats Jack, but she has to learn that they're all trying to kill her before she has the gumption to do that. And then when you're designing your story, you need to have reasons for one plot point to come before the other. So which one's going to come first, supernatural or external? So this weaving this and how, and you'll learn that which one needs to come first before the other, which one will make the next story arc believable, because readers need to have believability. Okay, moving quick. So plot point 2 happens at the same time. This is where she faces the dark forces, but it's a war games. But she kills Jack in this and scene, and she's never killed anyone. She's poisoned. She's thrown knives. She's cut people. She's never killed. She doesn't want to kill. She kills Jack. Jack does something horrible, and you'll have to read the book to find out. And she kills him. She fries him, and she gets depressed, and that happens. So she kills him. Supernatural. She gets super depressed in the plot point 2, and but that has to happen before the climax scene, because let's see here, she kills him using lightning. She's at her lowest moment, and for the first time she's killed another person. She understands she must learn to control her lightning if she's going to survive the first year, so that she has to learn to control it before the climax. So in the climax occurs at the same time. She wins the battle. She uses all she's learned in the supernatural, in the magic and external, how to be a warrior, how to ride her dragon. All these things come to a pinnacle in this one scene. It's really well done. So the stakes for the external and supernatural plots are different, and yet the goal for each of the skeleton blurbs is addressed in the same scene. In the climax, she survives her first year as a cadet. She learns to control her signet. Until she can control her signet, she can't survive as a cadet. And until she survives as a cadet, she can't beat the evil mythical creatures and save Navarre. The two events need each other, so it makes sense that they occur at the same scene. Okay, you guys, that's how the story's weaved in this one. There's also romance weaved in there as well. I was like, as I was going through, I was like, oh, here's the romance parts, but I kept quiet. Aren't you proud of me? Didn't bring romance in. So thanks for coming. Let's see here. Is there any more final quick questions? Let me see if I can bring this up and stop share.
We're good there, Alex. You've answered all of the questions. I just want to say, from anyone who's scribbling really hard to write everything down, all of these diagrams are in the fantasy book with great detail of all the explanations behind it. We also have Linda here, and this afternoon, Linda and I are coming live online to talk about the top 3 things we learned about writing a romance while we wrote Secrets to Writing a Romance. So that's at 4 p.m. Eastern. It's on the it's in the free class space in the community. Alexandria, you did a fabulous job. Thank you for doing that. Super excited that you're now presenting fantasy for us. That's wonderful.
I had so much fun, you guys. Thanks for coming. I just love this.